You might be surprised, but the average home in North America has about 21 connected devices. So getting your Wi-Fi and your home's network right, it's very important, but it can feel like a big task and it can be confusing. For those of us who are trying to have a reliable smart home, it's even more important for us to get Wi-Fi and that overall network to be set up the right way. So when I got into our home here, this brand new home, it wasn't set up for success. The way we build homes, the way internet service providers try to sell us on things, and the other devices that were sold as a consumer, they're just wrong. It doesn't have to be hard, and I'm going to show you some of the easiest ways to upgrade your Wi-Fi and your network for a smart home. We'll go through some of my own journey as I moved into this house and got it ready for home automation in 2024. Let's give her. Hello Automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and my goal on the channel is to save you time and money on your journey to live smarter. So hit the subscribe button now for more of those things in your life. But I want to thank our channel members who make videos like today's entirely possible. Otherwise, we'd have to go out there, find sponsors for videos like this. But instead, I can just give you all the info you need and show you our journey. So thanks to these great people who make it all possible. There are some common problems that we run into with Wi-Fi and smart homes, and you might have a couple of these going on in your home right now. Number one, slow speeds. This is actually less of a problem than you might expect, but with devices like smart cameras and streaming devices, it can be an issue. As smart speakers and smart displays can also have trouble if your speeds are slow. Number two, proper coverage. Finding dead zones or lower Wi-Fi signal strength is a big problem. And it's both a reason that we see slower speeds in parts of homes and that we also see devices disconnect from our Wi-Fi. Any disconnections are big problems when it comes to reliability on smart gear. Number three, all those dropped connections. This is the biggest problem for most smart homes and most Wi-Fi systems. We must keep our devices connected, but lots of these systems drop devices, and there's a few reasons for that. Number four is interference. Now, when you're in an apartment building or you're just really close to your neighbors, sometimes their networks can interfere with your own, or your own home can do this. This can also cause things to drop off your Wi-Fi system and cause speed slowdowns. Now, there's a few other minor issues that you might be running into, but those are kind of the big four that can really impact you. So let's go through some of the best options you'll have for upgrading your Wi-Fi, and I'll tell you what problems these options will fix for you. So if you want to fix disconnections from interference, my advice to you is the app called Wi-Fi Man. Now, one caveat to this is you might not find the screen you need on the iPhone app. You might not even find an iPhone app. So you might need to get yourself a friend with an Android phone, otherwise known as a real phone. Just kidding, relax. To use this, in order to get rid of interference, you need to first diagnose where that interference is happening. Walk around your home with this scan screen open, and you're gonna start to see these little bars changing and some of these SSIDs saying different things down here. You can see they're saying good, excellent, etc., etc. And now it says fair. The other thing you might notice is that it says 2.4 gigahertz at the top. You can switch between 5, and I can switch between 6 gigahertz because I have a 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi transceiver on this phone. But it's showing you the Wi-Fi signals that are present in your home at these different frequencies. And obviously you're going to notice that Wi-Fi at 2.4 gigahertz is very congested around most homes. You'll also notice here that there are channels at the bottom of this chart, and they match up with these rows here. Channels are basically small pieces of the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, and believe it or not, you can change the channels that your router or your mesh Wi-Fi system are using in most cases. So if you come into a chart like this and you see that your neighbor's Wi-Fi signal is overtaking yours, this is a big concern and it's a potential source of interference. Your own signal strength should range from about minus 50 dBm down to about minus 70 dBm. Anything lower than that and you could potentially start to run into some issues. So change these channels on your router setting if you can, and avoid these kinds of a situation. It's time to get rid of the crappy Wi-Fi devices you have in your home. I don't mean the cheap light bulb you bought. I mean a couple of Wi-Fi broadcasting devices that a lot of you have. Now, if you get rid of these and replace them with the right thing, you will almost always eliminate disconnections and increase your speeds. The two devices are Wi-Fi extenders and routers from your internet service provider. Now, Wi-Fi extenders should not be in a smart home. End of story. Okay, I have yet to see a good unit provide connection to a lot of smart home devices reliably. They'll drop connections all the time, and even if their specs say that they're pretty fast, they won't provide that speed most of the time. Get rid of them. Now, it surprises a lot of people. When they come to my channel, they complain about a Wi-Fi device that's constantly disconnecting. And then I ask them what their router is. And then I point at that router stating that it's the problem. Now, routers that I find that are the worst are coming from your internet service provider. They bring these in, and a lot of them are really cheap units that can hold on to about 20 to 30 Wi-Fi devices before they start dropping things off of your network. There are some cases where an internet service provider is providing something good, but this is very few and far in between. Now, ISPs want to put their routers in your home, and here in Canada, in a lot of cases, they're trying to charge you a rental fee for it. It's a basic subscription, and we all know that that's the ultimate in money making for these companies, right? So one of the ways they try to force this into our homes is that they combine their router with a modem. A modem basically converts your incoming cable, whether that's fiber or coax or something else. It'll convert it into Ethernet that the rest of your home can use. Now, that modem then lets you wire an Ethernet cable from it into your router, and that allows your router to provide the internet connection and usually Wi-Fi to the rest of your home. But when an ISP combines those two things and then puts it in your home, you already have a router, and it's really difficult to get them to turn off that routing feature in those units. In some cases, it's impossible. So before I ordered my internet, I told my ISP if they wanted to bring one of those combo units to just stay home, and I would order from someone else. So both of these types of devices are crap, and you need to get them off your network. After you've diagnosed dead zones or low signal strength, one of the easiest ways to deal with those spots is to change the placements of your router or mesh Wi-Fi system. I've already described the situation with my internet service provider, but the way we build our homes, at least here in Canada, is not helping us with our router placement. We're here in my basement, in the very corner of my home. This is where my internet comes into. That means my modem was here. And it meant that my router from my ISP ended up here too. Now remember, your modem goes directly into the back of your router with that Ethernet cable. Let me show you with a 3D model I built of my home how this affected things. My internet service provider brought this router with them, even though I asked them not to, and I let them plug it in for the first 10 minutes of service. Then I checked how far their Wi-Fi was going, and it covered about half of my home. Worse yet, when I asked them what they would do to cover my whole home, they offered a Wi-Fi extender. Now, I can only rework my placement of this router a little bit. I can use an Ethernet cable that's a little longer length to get that router into the middle of my basement. And yes, that would help. If that's all you can do, it's still a big benefit, and it will provide a lot of faster speeds and a lot better coverage for your home. Now, in general, I'm going to tell you that mesh Wi-Fi is going to work better for you, and I'm going to give you some more reasons in a minute. But one of the biggest reasons is that coverage. So I switched out their router for my mesh Wi-Fi system. It's a Nest Wi-Fi Pro system, and I have 3 nodes. Initially, just to test out the difference in terms of speed and in terms of coverage, I left my main router from that system right here in the corner of my basement. Then I tried to place my other 2 units through the middle of my home so I would get decent coverage with my Wi-Fi. This provided about 250 to 300 megabits per second of speed on average throughout my home. When I relocated my modem to the middle of my home, which I'm going to show you in a minute, it brought all of my mesh points and that main router closer together. In the Google Home application, where you manage those routers, it said that it had a great connection. That's really important to see in the app that you're using to manage your mesh Wi-Fi system. And when I relocated that modem and I was able to move my main router into the middle of my home, just below those 2 mesh Wi-Fi points, most of my home got speeds from 350 to 400 megabits per second. Pretty good increase. I was also able to cover my home better because we were all through the middle. Now, let me show you the next thing that I did, which brought up my speed to about double what we had originally, and in some cases, a lot more. This is 100% the most effective thing you can do, and it's easier to do than you might think, and that is to add wires like these. These are Cat6e Ethernet cables, and you can go for a higher category in your home if you'd like more top-end speed. But these are fast enough for most modern day routers and mesh systems. Adding cables like this to my home brought those speeds up to double or sometimes more than double versus what I was achieving before. There's 2 big reasons for that. Number 1, the communication that goes between your mesh Wi-Fi points now uses cables. In general, cables are faster than the Wi-Fi speeds you're going to achieve. This is called wired backhaul. You should always look for a mesh Wi-Fi system that has this capability, even if you can't fully implement it today. Number 2, this is freeing up Wi-Fi resources because a lot of that Wi-Fi communication is now being put through cables like these. It doesn't have to happen through your Wi-Fi anymore, and it means the resources on your mesh nodes are being used to service the Wi-Fi devices around your home instead. Now let me show you what I did and a couple of other benefits that this has for your smart home. We ran 2 cables up from the basement to go to our main floor. We also ran 2 cables to go to our second floor. Now, these cables run through the middle of our home. That's actually a big reason why we could do this. These inner walls, they usually have less or no insulation, and it meant that we could drill through the floor and get into the basement. It then meant we could pull cables fairly easily up and down our home. Now there was a little bit of damage on our second floor doing this, but nothing a little bit of mud and paint can't fix, so I got a little job to do. The path that my internet takes is a little different than you might expect. You might be thinking that I would leave my main router here in the basement. Well, I want my main router, which is directly connected to the internet by that modem, to service most of my home. So what I did is I took one of my cables that's going up to the main floor and connected it directly to my modem. Then I wired that into my main router. And now I have my main router on my main floor to service a lot of the traffic around my home, and it eliminates a lot of that backhaul traffic. From there, because my router has a second port on it, I'm able to use that second in-wall cable to create a wired backhaul to my other mesh Wi-Fi points. What we're essentially doing is going from that main router down to the basement here, and then we're going all the way up to the second floor using these cables. That means all 3 of my mesh Wi-Fi points are wired, and most of my home is being serviced by that main router. It's eliminating a lot of traffic in my home, and I'm sure some people will point out a few inefficiencies in this setup. But let me point out one other thing that is so important to you as a smart home person. At each of my mesh Wi-Fi points, I can locate a good little network switch, and then I can easily wire in smart home hubs. Of course, placing a smart home hub in the middle of your home is going to be beneficial. It's going to allow them to service a lot of your home just the same as your mesh Wi-Fi nodes can. I know a lot of people end up putting smart home hubs in their basement and even in the corner of their basement, and that just doesn't help us cover our homes with these good smart home networks. Now, you might be wondering why this creates so much extra speed in my home, but I'll explain that in the next section. The easiest way to improve your Wi-Fi today is to get a new mesh system. There are new technologies and speeds have increased considerably. Now, coverage is much better on these newer systems too, and they have better processing power to do all of this. But as a smart home person, we need to focus on the right specifications to choose the right system. Number 1, those Ethernet cables that I brought into my home let me do what's called a wired backhaul. And you can't do this unless your Wi-Fi mesh system says it can do that. Make sure that's there. Number 2, one of the reasons that wired backhaul is so important is because a wireless backhaul takes up a lot of one of the most important resources. Now, here on Google Nest's Wi-Fi Pro specification page, they show 2x2 and then 2.4 gigahertz. We see a similar specification for the 5 and 6 gigahertz frequencies. What this specification is saying to you is that 2 devices can be receiving data and 2 devices can be transmitting data. So just to clarify, wireless backhaul can use a lot of that 2x2 specification at any given moment, especially if you're streaming. Now, just so you're not being misled by this, understand that Wi-Fi systems are pretty efficient. And so even when you're streaming, it's not using one of those spots 100% of the time. But it's important to understand that you only have so many devices that can be talked to in a single moment. You probably first look at 2 things on any mesh Wi-Fi system. You look for the standard that it adheres to, and then you look for the overall speed. Here on this box from TP-Link, this is Wi-Fi 7 capable, and you'll notice it says the speed is BE 10,000. Super exciting for a lot of people, but we have to go deeper. BE just means Wi-Fi 7. The 10,000 means 10,000 megabits can be transferred over Wi-Fi by this system per second. But if you look at this lower specification, where it shows the different maximum speeds we have per frequency, this system might not fit you at all. So much of that 10,000 megabits is dedicated to 6 gigahertz. So if you're mostly using 2.4 gigahertz devices, you only have this much speed. Now 6 gigahertz is only used for the 2 newest Wi-Fi standards. Those are Wi-Fi 6E and 7. So if you don't have any of those devices, all of that speed will be wasted. In that situation, and where you're maybe not planning any 6E or 7 devices to bring into your home, you don't need this. And I'm not saying that you don't buy one for the future, but you're not necessarily getting an upgrade in 2024. And I promise you'll save a lot of money by not buying the newest Wi-Fi standard. Now, there's one caveat to this, and that is if you can't do a wired backhaul. If you're doing a wireless backhaul, oftentimes the companies today will try to use that 6 gigahertz frequency. So that can be a reason that you still buy a system like this. But there's even a caveat to that. That caveat is that your mesh Wi-Fi points have to be close enough together in order to use the 6 gigahertz frequency as a backhaul. So again, you still need to design your system right to take advantage of all this speed. There are a few reasons I tend to recommend mesh Wi-Fi to people over just a single router. Now, one reason is the coverage, because you're going to get additional coverage having multiple nodes around your home. You're also going to get additional transmit and receive spots, because each mesh node is going to be capable of 2x2 or 3x3. But the biggest reason for me is that mesh systems can generally keep more devices connected to them than a single router can. That specification is so important for smart homes, and I find in general when you see a system says, hey, we can hold on to 75 devices, drop that amount by about 25%, and that will be where you start to have reliability problems. That is not a hard and fast rule by any means, but it's what I've found when I've been testing systems. So, Google says they can hold on to 200 devices, and I find around 150, they start to have problems. And that 2x2 or 3x3 specification plays into this heavily. To get the right Wi-Fi system for you, make sure the specifications match your situation. Get the right speeds at the right frequencies. Maximize the number of transmit and receive spots that you have, and if you can, do that wired backhaul. And make sure that you look for systems that can handle a lot of devices, and check reviews for things like that to be proven by a very trusted creator. We will have a part 2 and actually a part 3 to this video. Part 2 is going to be a comparison of the speeds that I was able to achieve with Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, and Wi-Fi 7. Those upper speeds do matter for a lot of you. So if you're wondering whether or not it's worth it to upgrade to one of those new technologies, check out the video that's up there. And we're gonna produce what's called Smart Home Networking 101, and that'll be a comprehensive guide to networking a smart home in the right way. As soon as we produce it, it'll be down there. So check those out. Otherwise, thanks for watching today. And of course, live smart.